Hi there, this is LT Survival. In today's video we're going to see knots. It's a part one of the knots. I did the French a couple of weeks ago, so this is the English version. I had to reshoot everything because everything was in French, so instead of dubbing on top I preferred to have it live than to redo it. Less complicated, and it's a new footage, and I'm going to do some more knots in the future. So first thing first, we need cordage, a rope of different colors so you can see it. Ooh, yeah, a rope of different colors so you can see them closely, and the camera is going to be standing over my shoulder, so it's going to be just, you're going to be seeing only my hands working. So hopefully you're gonna like this video. It's a tutorial for the knots. It's some knots that we use for cadets. So in the capsule you'll see, in the intro you'll see the Francophone book for the cadets of all the knots we use. There is a English version, but I don't have it on hand, so if I find it I'll redo a cover shot for it, but if not, I'm just gonna keep the French one. It's a book that shows all the knots we can do. It's made for the 3 elements, so there's as much Navy or Army stuff in it, and knots that can be used by anyone. So the more you know knots, the better it is, and there's some terms we have to use. First of all, there is the working hand, the one we do the knot with. There is the standing hand, or the fixed hand, which we're not using, around which we're gonna go. You can make a bite or you can make a loop. Usually loop, okay, will cross over the standing end. So when we make a loop, usually we always make it on top of the standing end. So that's about it. When we have 2 working ends, then we're going to use from the left hand to the right hand, and to the right hand, from the right hand to the left. So that way you're going to understand that the working ends are crossing over usually each of the other. So beside that, practice makes better. A few knots usually are really useful for most people. If you learn 5 knots, usually with those 5 knots you'll be able to get around to do most of your task. There is specialized knots. There is all kinds of knots you can use depending on what you want to attain as a result. But once you master a couple, and if you go up to 10 knots, then you'll be able to go around and do whatever you want with your rope. And it's also a fact that when you know knots, you use less knots. So you don't make 1,000 knots to hold the tarp. You make a good knot with a secondary good knot, and it's all the security you need. And we'll see a couple of those in the future. I'm going to be working also those knots to be useful for making the hoochie, an A-tent that we make with ground sheet in the cadets. So that is also a specialized used. We don't use ridge lines in the cadets because we have a heavy-duty tarp, so they can be taut pretty tight, and it's going to be they'll be holding, not ripping. But you can do that with any tarp. You have to be careful not to rip your tarp or the eyelet of your tarp when binding them, but it's feasible. So stay tuned. We'll jump right into the part 1 with the bowline, the fisherman knot, the simple and the double version, and the slip knot. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. First, to establish your ball line, you got to take the standing end and make a bite. There's two ways you can do that. You can simply cross it over, okay, and you keep it in your hand like this, or you can take your two fingers, thumb and pointy finger, not index, and you flip it over, okay, which makes, and usually it makes the loop right away. So it makes the loop. I'm gonna redo it again. Don't you take thumbs and index, pinch the line, twist it, and it makes the loop that you hold with your thumb and your index from the other hand. Okay, then we're gonna use the story of the bunny. Okay, the bunny is waking up in the winter and he doesn't want to get eaten, so when he comes out of his hole, he's looking around to if there's enemy. So here's the bunny, it's out of the hole, and it's going to do his business in the back of the tree and come back to the hole in the ground, to his cave. Okay, and you keep the both. I'm trying to not have my fingers all over the place. So basically the bunny came out, went around the tree, and came back to his hole, and then all you have to do is to keep this one on, okay, and you pull. Okay, you basically tight every one neath the the working hand from this to that has to come back parallel to the knot, and you have your permanent loop. Okay, this loop is very useful because you can tie something with it. Okay, hold something. In a hoochie, we mate the four eyelet together, and we pass that loop through. So once it is tied, you can untie it really easy. Okay, it's really easy to undo. So if I try through, here's something fixed, the eyelet, for example, of my uchi. I could use one of these. Okay, so basically this is your working hand, this is the standing hand. Your bite is going through the eyelet. Come back to your rope. Now I put the bunny on top of my rope and twist it. Okay, that's another way of doing it. I did the same thing as if I was pulling it through, but I used it at the same time I pinch that knot to be made. So the bunny comes out, goes around the tree, comes back in, okay, and it is parallel to get to his former track, and you tie it up and you have a fixed loop. So you've gripped the either a carabiner or a eyelet on a tarp, and you can secure your tarp to anything, a tree with other knots. So basically that's one of the use of that knot. It gives you a loop. Okay, it makes also a quick fix for a lanyard that you would make for a tool or something that you put your hand through it and you have a permanent loop. Walking stick, for example, you could make a loop, permanent loop like that with any rope. To make the simple fisherman knot, you need two lines to be united together. So it's a knot to unify two lines together. The first line you're going to do, the first knot you ever learned to do, is the simple knot. Okay, anybody that does not should know this one. Okay, so basically it's two knots like this that we're going to do on opposite line to unite our line. And the way to do it is, once you got the simple knot, and I could have done it right away around the second line, is to pass one line into the knot and then pass the other knot around the next line, basically doing the same knot but just on different direction, it's harder to do it on screen than in reality. So once you tie both knot, okay, you unite both of these knots, and that is your fisherman knots. This one is really not complicated. It's used by fishermen, line fishermen, and they just use it. So basically my lines are going parallel, okay, to each other here and here, and they end up on the opposite side where their parent, their tied end, is. So we've got the brown one here and we've got the red one here. So very simple knot. It is a very efficient knot, very solid, but it's going to be permanent. You have to cut the rope once tension is applied. So this is it. Let's do the second knot, the double one. Okay, double fisherman knots is again used to tie up two line. It is a bit stronger. The hold, it has less potential of slipping, so it's more used than the single one, but you have to learn the single one to do the second one. So you have two lines again, and one line is going to go, and we take a lot of line, one line is going to go straight around the second one. So we're starting it up with the second one, and we do two pass, okay, two pass, and we keep everything together, and we go through, whoops, we get, okay, once you hold this, okay, you do your second pass, that's your standing hand here of the red one. Second pass, you pinch them together and you go over the rope and under, okay. Not sure if you've seen this. Let me recap. So we go around the rope once, okay, once I pinch them. We're going around okay, we're going around a second time, crossing over, okay, hey boy, and then going under, which will make a bite like that. Okay, so we go twice on one side and then come back, jumped over our standing end, and go through both loops. Okay, I've kept those loop in my hand, and we do the same thing with the other end. So basically going around my fingers, it's going to be easier to see, going around my finger again and again, okay. I have not enough, so a little more line. So this is the brown line. You go under, okay, going around my finger, pinch the loop, and then come back through over my standing end, this one, and my exit point is opposite. And here we have the second knot, and we pull them together and they bind, and they will not be removable if you put tension to it. That's a way of uniting two cable of the line of the same diameter. It's a good way. It's used in fishing for the down line to your hook, or to your how do you call it, shiny stuff, okay, and hook to catch a fish. So that's a double fisherman knot. Okay, the slip knot or the poacher's knot, basically it's to create a snare, something that will snare anything, either a bottle or a bunny in the wild if you need to survive. So your cord can be transformed as a snare. First thing first, from a strong cord, if you want to make a a snare, you need to create a bite with enough length so that you can make the knot. Pick up the standing end, okay, and give yourself enough loose so you can wrap around twice around your finger. So take enough, doesn't matter if you have too much, okay. So you will wrap, basically you pinch when you create a loop, okay, out of the bend that you did. You create a loop and then you wrap twice around your finger, once and twice, okay. You go around and you come back here, across and under, okay. So basically you come a bit like the fisherman knots. We use the same knots, okay. Basically it is the same knots. If you look at it carefully and rewind to the double fisherman knots, this is the same knots that you use, except that this one will slide along your rope and it will be difficult to undo once you're into the loop. So creating the tension to remove it, if you're only wiggling, it's not gonna happen. This one is very useful with a bottle like this one, okay, that I have to carry in the field, okay, because it has nothing to hook the line on it. I just do the snare and I can make another loop and tie it off to the rope and I can carry my bottle. So it works the same with any animals that you want to catch to survive in the woods. Well, this is it. This is all the knots that we've seen. Hope you like the knots that we've seen. They're basic 3 knots that I'm using a lot. Fisherman knot, not so often, but the slip knot and the bowline, it's pretty good. It's pretty useful. There'll be other knots that we'll be using for our tent. The bowline is the one that we use for the tent the most, but in the next part we'll see other knots that will be used in conjunction with the bowlines to fix our uchi. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, share and subscribe, and we'll be right back.